Hello. Have you guys had a good day? Yeah. So even though I can't see you, how many of you have heard of idealist.org before? Wow, awesome. I'm asking because I think there are few things more boring than describing a website. So check it out. Like Jessica said, it's this very big website that essentially is the biggest website in the world that connects nonprofits with people who want to work with them, volunteer with them, all of that stuff. Every country in the world except North Korea, in English, Spanish, and French. So idealistas.org, idealist.org. So if you haven't heard about it, ask the person next to you or check it out at home, okay? So what I want to do today, though, instead of talking about the site, is tell you why I started it, why I keep doing it after 20 years and gray hair and stuff, and also what we're doing next. So the reason I started it, I was born in Jerusalem, in Israel. When I was 3, we went off to Peru and then to Mexico for 8 years. Essentially, my whole childhood was spent in Latin America. And ever since I was like 7 or 8, I'm not sure exactly why, I became this little social justice freak, basically. I was like seeing other kids in the street, begging, looking for food. And I started asking my parents, you know, why? Why do we have food at home and they don't? What's going on here? And of course, I imagine the first 3 or 4 times I asked, it was very cute. Then probably, you know, what do you tell an 8-year-old that keeps asking why is there injustice in the world? But then I remember a very specific day. We're out driving with my dad. I must have been, again, 8 or 9. We're stuck in traffic in Mexico City. It was raining really hard. And he stopped at a light. And in those days, I think also now, there were lots of kids begging by the lights. They would just come to you to the car and sort of knock on your window. And it was raining hard. I could hardly see what was going on outside. But I remember this kid my age, 8, 9 years old, came to the car suddenly out of the rain, and he put his hands on the windshield, on the window outside. And so his face was like basically an inch from mine. And he was looking at me, and he wanted me to somehow help him. And I felt, you know, like, dude, I can't help you. I'm 8 years old. And my dad sort of drove away. But that feeling of impotence, and that feeling I wanted to do something, that changed, that stayed with me, and that has sort of never left me. And again, I can't see you, but all of you have felt this, right? You open the paper in the morning, or you go online, you walk down the street, and we see things every day where we feel we would do something if we could, right? It's a very general feeling, and yet there's that distance between our intention and the action that we actually take. And so that very much stayed with me. Fast forward a bit, went back to Israel when I was 15, high school, and then, as most of you know, 3 years of military service. So I joined the paratroopers, didn't really know what I was doing, but there I was. One awesome thing, 1,000 straight awesome sunrises, by the way. So we had to sort of get up in the morning every day when it was dark, and so I saw the sunrise for 3 years in a row, and that was awesome. Everything else, not so awesome. But anyway, so after about a year of training, we were assigned, this was a very long time ago, this was in the early 80s. My job was to be on the Syrian border in the Golan Heights, or Lebanese border. And you guys have all seen this scene in the movies where you have, you know, sort of watchtowers, barbed wire, no man's land, minefields. And my job was to be up on this watchtower, spending several hours a day looking through binoculars at the other side in case sort of anything suspicious was going on. And I'm alone up there, sometimes 8 hours a day. Cell phones have not been invented yet. We're not allowed to read. I'm 19 years old. Your mind wanders all kinds of places. And then one day, I had this like flash, this idea, this intuition, that really sort of basically changed my life, and that still pretty much haunts me. So 2 pieces of background for where I was mentally that day. One is that growing up in Israel, in a conflict area, and also, you know, sort of in any fragmented society, we tend to sort of dehumanize the other, right? We walk down the street, we see someone different, and we basically see a label. We don't really see a human being. In Israel, growing up in Israel, this is certainly the case. Arabs, and we can talk about this openly, Arabs are not exactly human. They're sort of something else. And that's important, because if they were truly human, it'd be really hard to shoot them, to fight them. And both sides do this. There's a sort of natural thing that happens. So that's one thing. Second thing that was on my mind is that having gone through a year of the army and then, you know, some high school, like all of you did, I realized after a while that wherever I landed, I would very quickly meet some people that I could trust, like immediately, look in their eyes, and I was like, oh my God, I could trust this guy with my life. And others that not so much. And the way that it sort of manifested itself, we talked about this at the time, was that there were guys in my unit who would give me their last pair of dry socks if I needed it. And then there were some other guys who might steal my last pair of socks if they needed it. That's sort of like the ethical range, if you like. So those two thoughts were in my head. And I'm up on this tower, I'm looking through the binoculars, and I don't know exactly why, but in the distance, across this valley, there was this platoon of Syrian soldiers who I think had a day off or had a few hours off, and they were playing soccer. And I could hear their laughter sort of coming up the valley. And I think there was something about the laughter, the running around like kids, that sort of humanized them in my eyes. And I realized there was this moment of like, oh my God, they're exactly as human as me. And that was followed as quickly by, if that's the case, they must also have some guys there that would share their socks with me or with others, and some guys who wouldn't. And if that's the case, and that's when I sort of laughed out loud, if that's the case, this whole fence here that is running this way makes no sense at all. It should be running this way. All the good guys on one side and all the other guys on the other. This sort of doesn't make any sense. I never, ever in my life want to have to shoot or fight anyone. But I've never met these guys. They're just kids like me who have been conscripted. There are two guys in my unit who, if I had to shoot someone, I've met them. I actually know exactly who they are. And so this doesn't make any sense at all. And so that sense of how do you reach out across borders, how do you cross all these lines that separate us, religious, ethnic, racial, national, that very much stayed with me. You grow up, you realize life is more complicated. We actually carry, all of us, the good and bad within us. It's not good people and bad people. It's this constant, struggle within us. And yet that sense of how do we build something together across all these lines, that very much stayed with me. And I think as I've gotten older, I've only gotten actually more idealistic. Like I really feel with every cell of my body that the world could be a dramatically different place if we did two things. One is to, yes, find those sock sharers wherever they are, define them. We're about to launch something in Idealist very soon. Define it not with socks. Some people don't wear socks. What are you going to do? You can sort of do it differently. Actually, through a very, very simple sentence that we've come up with over time that goes something like, working with others in a spirit of generosity, mutual respect, I want to help build a world where all people can lead free and dignified lives, okay? If you agree with that, we would love to work with you. And then work with you to do what? To go back to the original story about that kid in the car, solve what I think is the biggest problem, the single biggest problem in the world, which is this big gap that is out there between all of the good intentions that all of us have every day and the action that we actually take. If we could actually release all this energy, all these ideas that we have, all the good we could do upon reading the news, upon hearing of something, we all know we can do more. We all feel this intuitively. We just very often don't know who to start, where to start, who to work with. We want to see our impact. Would love to add or drop to the bucket, but we want to see that level of water rising. So there's so much more we can do. And so what Idealist is going to do sort of next, over the next few years, beginning very soon, is call out everyone in the world that agrees with those very, very basic values, show that in fact we exist everywhere, we do exist across every border and boundary in the world, and then work together to do everything we can, online, face-to-face, in communities, globally, to close that gap between intention and action. It'll help every person find what they're passionate about and then take one small step forward to do it. Okay, so that's sort of more, if any of what I said resonates with you and you'd love to be part of this from the very beginning, we're based in New York. Drop me a line at ami@idealist.org. I look at all my email, I respond to all my email. So drop me a line if you're interested and we'll see what we can do together. We're going to start on this journey soon. So thank you so much for having me here today. Shabbat Shalom and see you soon. Bye.